Good morning and welcome to our webinar in partnership with Liverpool John Moores University, which will explore how digital technology and Industry 4.0 can transform manufacturing businesses in this region. Given the challenges of the last 18 months, digitization has come to the forefront of many people's organizations, including manufacturers, and in 2021, many can't afford to stand still. Digital technology is transforming every industry and is being embedded throughout supply chains, large and small. Manufacturers who have adopted digital technologies are experiencing increased productivity and efficiency, lower operating costs, reduced lead times, the ability to be more competitive, and improved worker safety. This event will explore what's next for manufacturers, what they're doing now, how they can start the process of digitization, and we'll also look at the support and programs available to help manufacturers accelerate opportunities for growth using digital technology. To share insight into this, we have a great panel this morning. They include Daniel Smalley, Business Manager of Factory Automation and Digitalization at Siemens Digital Industries, Anthony Walker, Strategic Manager at Liverpool John Moores University, Ron McKay, Managing Director and Senior Engineer at PSW Integrity, Luke Walsh, Managing Director of Brainboxes, Mike Gazzola, Managing Director at R&M Joinery Manufacturers. We also have Jake Lavelle, who is founder of JPL Flavor Technologies, who is just running a little bit late, but joining us in 10 minutes. So we'll welcome him very soon. And thank you guys for joining us this morning. I'm going to just quickly go to Anthony. And Anthony, can you just talk a little bit about Industry 4.0 and why in 2021 it's as important as ever, and why the fourth industrial revolution should be something that manufacturers and organisations should be thinking about?
Thanks, Shalina. I'll try not to take up the whole hour trying to summarise Industry 4, but I'll just give a little 2-minute insight into where my thoughts are. So I think we live in a world now where technology, particularly digital technology, is having much more of an impact on every aspect of our lives than ever before. And it kind of enables change in the way we live, the way we work, the way we socialise, and everything that we do. And this Industry 4 revolution, it's already underway, but the interesting thing for me about it is it's probably more of an evolution than the previous 3 ones, as it would be, because there's not just one solution. So it is around sort of automation, and it is around artificial intelligence, the use of data, the cloud, all of these pillars of technology. But actually, it's about the real words that make a difference to manufacturers around better efficiency, reduced waste. So we see digital technology, or Industry 4, as the key enabling technology to drive economic growth, particularly in SMEs and particularly cross-sector, because it allows people to be more flexible, more agile, and react to opportunities more rapidly. That then leads to increased productivity, improved competitiveness, and then by definition, really, it enables sustainable growth to make people more efficient. So it really is an important concept, but even more important is the adoption of such technologies and then using innovation and skills to allow people to grow and move forward. So that would be my kind of summary of the importance of Industry 4.
Thanks, Anthony. And can I ask the same question to Daniel? Is that at the forefront of this as well, and to you, Daniel?
It's a good question, right? And when we talk to customers, quite often we start along the lines of, what do you think Industry 4 is, right? Because it is something quite different to different companies. And this largely depends on the level of maturity that they have in terms of the adoption of technology. And what we don't want to do is really miss, I guess, the conversation around more fundamental sort of automation and more fundamental topics by getting too quickly into the topic of big data and artificial intelligence and all these sort of things. Quite a lot of our customers have got quite a long way to go in terms of their maturity of just connecting machines securely, sharing data, getting common data models and all these sort of things before they can really start taking advantage of some of the more future-oriented technologies. We look at it, I guess, from a Siemens point of view in two broad aspects. One, I think, is the most common one, where you're looking at the vertical integration of data. How do we get data out of systems into higher level systems so we can do analytics and things like that? That's probably more common one and well understood. But we also look at the horizontal integration of data, where we're looking at the complete life cycle of production of a product, from the design aspect to how it's manufactured, how it's sort of operated and optimized, and how it's sort of managed throughout the full life of a product or a manufacturing process. And we look at the digitalization, the horizontal integration of digital systems. How do we get a design that might exist in CAD to start defining how it's manufactured and linking these systems together? Now, this is a conversation that's not always an obvious conversation, but it's one that I would say delivers quite great rewards with our customers. You know, how do they get from an initial inquiry from a customer to actually producing a product and linking these systems together? They're often quite disparate and different systems.
Thanks, Daniel. I'll just move over to Luke. You know, just explain a little bit about, you know, what you do and what your business does, and, you know, your own sort of journey when it comes to digitalization, how you guys are working across all sectors, and how you're helping your customers on their journey.
Sure, thank you, Shalina. Yeah, I'm just to echo what Dan and Anthony said. I mean, it is a journey. People all start at different phases, and you'll see that different industries have adopted this technology at different rates. And as an example of that, we've probably all got smartwatches. These smartwatches all record how we run, for example, and it will record undulations in your running capability. And this is just a standard feature all customers expect, all consumers have. But applying that same technology to a different industry, you'll find that other industries are way, way behind. So we've worked with the train industry, for example, and they want to measure undulations in the train in the same way that your smartwatch measures undulations in your running capability. And to get that technology into that industry, there's a number of challenges that need to be overcome. And so we've done a pilot with a particular train company, and they've installed some of our products that we make here in Liverpool in the UK into trains. And what those products do is they measure the vibration of the train on the track, and then they pass that data up to the cloud, and then the train company can see which parts of the track are uncomfortable for the customer, measuring them to specific ISO standards. And this all relates to saving money for the train company, because if the track is uncomfortable for the customer, they have to slow the train down. If they slow the train down, the train can run late. If the train runs late, then they can be fined by the operator. And so it's just reapplying the same techniques and the same type of technology to different problems across different sectors. And we see that really greatly, and particularly now, as you see, there's huge inflation in lots of different industries, and it's slowly engulfing, feels like it's engulfing everything. And even now more so than ever, companies need to find ways to make cost savings in order to deliver to their customers, because their price of raw materials is typically going up, and they need to keep a really tight control over that. So yeah, we've got a number of examples where our technology is used within our own factory and within our customers' factories to help improve their efficiency and ultimately help them save money.
Yeah, and I think that you guys have been doing quite a while. It's not, you know, I always talk about Industry 4.0 now, but you've been at it for a while. Yeah,
I mean, in some respects, I'm sure it's the same for Dan. I mean, we've made communication technology for decades, and the technology is just being reapplied in a different place and with a different buzzword. And whereas previously it wasn't very glamorous, now our products connect to a cloud platform, and it's called Industry 4, and it sounds much more glamorous than it used to. So for us, we're kind of at the convergence between IT, which is technology that used to typically run in an office on a Windows platform, and OT, which is technology that used to run in a factory. And we're kind of combining those two types of technology into one, so that the customer can have really great industrial monitoring of their equipment, but also get all the benefits of sharing that data more broadly across their local network and into the cloud for things like analytics and all those brilliant buzzwords that we hear, like big data and AI.
Yeah, well, goes back to Dan's point about connecting the dots.
Definitely.
Yeah, and Ron, you guys are doing something similar. When we spoke, it was yesterday, in talking about the carbon capture, and just tell us a bit more about the work that you're doing and the impact that's having.
Yeah, so we as an organisation specialise in helping some of our customers optimise asset management, but also in doing that, they actually often improve reliability, improve operations and quality, and also reduce the energy that's being consumed. And obviously that in turn reduces the carbon footprint. So when we're looking at our customers, we work with many different ones. One of our customer sites is 100 years old or over 100 years old. A lot of it's still manual, and when we evaluate those kinds of sites, we're always looking at ways to introduce new technologies to help them reduce the carbon footprint, or and improve asset management and reliability. So I think the technologies that we introduce most of the time are very specific to the customers. But the beauty of the time at the moment and the technologies available at the moment is for almost every kind of process parameter or every kind of condition parameter that you're looking to monitor, there's a technology out there that's available. And also a lot of the time it's wireless as well and feeds into the cloud. So we always look for the most suitable technology for what the customer is trying to achieve. As one example, a local company, a plastic extrusion company, they spend it must be almost £3 million a year just on electricity. And when you look at that kind of cost, because it's a plastic extrusion plant, the biggest factor that they have, or the biggest influence they have to improve efficiencies and reduce carbon footprint, is the efficiency of the equipment and also the power consumed. So we're looking for the most carbon neutral equipment for them, or the lowest carbon footprint equipment. Whether it's one example would be introducing IE4 motors instead of IE2 motors, because that efficiency actually pays itself back within 3 or 4 years. So that's a big technology changer for them. But while we're doing this, we're also installing monitoring solutions for their energy on every single line now, and that will enable them to see where the biggest costs are and where the biggest cost savings can be made. So all of these kinds of things will really drive towards, obviously reducing their carbon footprint massively. And this can be deployed across multiple sites and multiple customers as well. So yeah, and that's a big important part, especially with the 2030 targets of the UK and the rest of the world. Really, it's a massive influence to be able to monitor every aspect of the performance of the plant and be able to then drive that proactively towards reducing energy emissions, and also improving the reliability.
And saving costs as well, especially with like wholesale prices about to shoot up.
Yeah, well, they've said that alone is going to increase their energy costs by £50,000 a month. So it's a massive motivator for them to try and reduce the costs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just move on to Mike. Mike, you guys established 40 years ago by your father. You've been in the business 28 years, and you're just beginning to start that journey of digitization. And I know it was about 5 years ago you sort of started, introducing sort of automation into the firm, and it's already making quite big impact on you guys, isn't it? Just tell us a bit more about the kind of work that you guys are doing.
So we manufacture quite a wide range of products for people. We tried for a while to find a system that would manage, sort of design, drive the machinery for all the products that we make. Now, because we're such a small company and we make a wide range of things, such a system would have to be custom made, and we couldn't find anyone who'd even make it, So what we've ended up doing is purchasing bolt-on software that you can just get off the shelf for each individual portion of the company, if you like. So we manufacture timber staircase, we do fit out work, so that's furniture and stuff like that, and we do fire doors as well. So we've got 3 different systems running that do all the technical, the design, cutting sheets, glass and all that kind of thing for each one of those products. Then we got faced with the problem that the guys are working off 3 different sort of layouts of sheets and all that sort of stuff, and 3 different link ups for the machinery, which there's nothing really we can do about that. But we've then introduced a product called Asana, which again is just a bolt-on project management software. So they sort of, it's like a filter to the other 3 systems. So they go through Asana, get all their information from it, see what their schedules are and everything. And we've sort of found a way to kind of muddle through with systems that are off the shelf, simply because we wouldn't be able to afford to get something made. So it's sort of what Daniel was talking about, is we're sort of at the point where he's talking about the maturity of systems and stuff. We're kind of probably, you know, if we're honest, quite at the low end of that. But it's how far into that industry 4.0 you're talking about that a company our size could get. You know, to have a fully automated factory would be nice, because I could go home more. But we're trying to find a way of getting as close to that as we can, while keeping it realistic about what we can afford to spend every month and every year, you know, and how much time we can afford to spend implementing those systems. So what we've come up with is the system we've got in total spend. We've probably only spent about, over the course of 4 or 5 years, about £30,000 on it, which isn't a great deal when you consider the benefits it's given us, you know. So we've tried to find a way where we can do something without spending hundreds of thousands of pounds that we can't really afford, you know.
Yeah, but you started it now, haven't you? And you know, and you're glad you've started it.
It's running, it's running.
Yeah.
All 4 systems are running now, yeah. So it's working fine. So people can just log on in the mornings, find out what they need to do, when they need to do it by, and sort of manage their own time a little bit more. So the idea of a foreman walking around in a brown coat with a clipboard, that doesn't really happen. You know, we sort of trust them to get what they need to get done when they need to get it done, and it reaps benefits really, because they don't really have to come and ask, oh, can we knock off at 4 o'clock today, and all this sort of stuff. It's like they've got their work done, they can sign out, and it's done, it's fine. So it's slightly more progressive than some places. It's not quite as progressive as we'd like it to be, but you know, we're just trying to get somewhere middle ground, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. Jake, yes, you've joined us now, and I love the factory background that you've got. Jake, we've just been talking about sort of, you know, the journeys for many people in terms of, you know, using digital technology and automation. And you guys have been doing that. I mean, you started a business only a few years ago, but, you know, expanding already, got US operations, new production plant, and just tell us the impact that kind of technology has had on you guys, especially in terms of the manufacturing aspect and getting your products out and making sure that your products are accurate. So yeah, just tell us a bit more about the business itself and how you're using automation to help.
Yeah, so we installed a system which called Oracle NetSuite was the first one we installed. So that was, we were having a lot of problems with the factory staff running out of compounds. We stock around 2,500 ingredients. Some we buy in like 1 kilo lots, some we buy in 5,000 kilo lots, and they range from price and lead times. So the problem we were having is a lot was the factory guys would come through and go, oh, we got none of this. Oh, it's ran out. And then you stock, and it might be a 6-week lead time, maybe an 8-week lead time, and we work on a 10 working day lead time, so it would cause problems. So that's why we originally looked into NetSuite, because we'd be able to track in live time the stock. So every time a batch sheet was raised and ran through NetSuite, it'd minus it off the stock and allocate it to that product. So that was the original reason we put that in. And then we added the goods in modules and the goods out modules, so it was all traceable, which then helped us with our audits, because we get audited by the BRC quite a lot. And everything's got to be traceable from every delivery to where it went, and then we have to do a mass balance to show where every gram is in the factory. So yeah, that helped us massively. And then we added another system called Marco, it's called, which is a flavour specific software. And that was, we had to train the guys up for about 6 months to a year before we can trust them to make something, because unfortunately when we're weighing flavour chemicals in the factory, sometimes it could be a 0.01 of a gram. And obviously if one of the guys don't say anything when they've gone over on the scale a little bit, there's not really any way for us to manage that without someone stood over them. So what Marco does is it actually tracks what they're putting in, and it has a graph. So we give a tolerance on how much over or under they can go, and it'll go green. And then if they go outside of the tolerance, it goes red, and it can alert the manager. So it'll lock them out of the system essentially, and that way we can keep track. We can then look to use agency in the future when we're busy, because in the flavour industry you have peaks and troughs. Summer's really busy because of beverages and things like that. So yeah, that's helped us massively. And then looking to the future, yeah, we're looking at automation potentially, but there's not a lot of options out there at the minute for flavours. So we're just looking to potentially work with the Growth Hub and people like that to try and add some automation robots in there if it's possible.
And tell us a bit more about, you guys make flavours, and those flavours, very secretive, aren't they? It's a bit like, Coca-Cola. And you had to introduce technology to make sure that your ingredients remain secret. Otherwise, you'd be losing staff selling your ingredients to your competitors.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so that was one of the modules for the Marco system I was talking about. So yeah, there's a in the flavour industry you can get moles and stuff like that. So you get people who join and they take pictures of the formulations, and they can be fed to other flavour houses, especially if you're working with big brands. So yeah, this Marco system hides the entire formulation for the operator in the factory, and it shows them one by one what the ingredient is. And then once it's added and hit green on that graph, it disappears off the system, and then it'll show them the next one. And because like originally we would just have the entire formulation, and at one point anyone could have just taken a picture of it. So again, that's why we had to vet the lads in the factory for us for a good year before they're making anything. So now this has given us a lot more freedom to take people on quickly and get them in and be able to trust them as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Some great stories about how everyone is using innovation and digital technology in their business. And just one for the panel. I mean, COVID-19 has definitely pushed more people into thinking about digitization. Those who hadn't already adopted technology might have suffered, and those who are already in the process or had adopted technology, did well over the last year because they knew how to pivot, and they weren't wasting any time. And do you guys feel that COVID has pushed people to think more about the digital transformation across manufacturing? Just one for anybody on the panel.
I think
go. Sorry, Rob.
I was going to say, I think from my side, we often, when we were doing implementations or when we were carrying out condition monitoring, it was very much the person on the site. We'd send an individual to site, one of our analysts, and they would go and collect data and then obviously analyze it off-site. One of the key changes we had was access to sites was a big challenge, and therefore we ended up developing sensors, and sensors were available as well, which you could install on the equipment and enable us to see the information back in our office and analyze the data. And this would also give us, very automated alarms once we put alarm settings in, and then alert other people to any deteriorations in condition. So that's one factor for us, which made a big difference in the way of introducing technology due to the COVID situation. So yeah.
Thanks, Ron. And anyone else wants to?
And a crisis is a good opportunity often. And if things are working in your factory and in your business, typically you don't want to change them unless there's a good reason to change them. And when COVID came along, obviously everything suddenly changed, and people were willing to reevaluate what they were doing in light of how everything had changed within their business circumstance. So for us, for example, things that we'd previously done on paper, which we knew we shouldn't be doing on paper, but we'd done that system for years and years and years. We couldn't anymore because half the team were at home, half were in the office. And so we had to digitize it. And that actually has led to loads of benefits. And we'd never go back now that we've done it. And I think a lot of businesses found the same in that, they suddenly had maybe a drop in demand, which allowed them to reevaluate the options for the shop floor. Or some businesses had huge spikes in demand while still being under these tremendous stresses of, to manage manpower in the building. And so, yeah, we've seen a number of companies adopt our technology during this time because of those challenges, and we've been forced to do it ourselves as well.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Anthony.
Yeah, I mean,
if I can just add to that. Sorry, I do.
I was going to say I absolutely completely agree with Luke. I mean, a lot of our customers, I would say it's not been a new idea for them, but I think it's certainly accelerated the decision, and a lot of maybe longer term projects have come a lot quicker. As a reseller and manufacturer of technology for automation and remote working and things like this, we can definitely see a big uptake in terms of those types of technologies being purchased directly from us. So you know that this is absolutely being accelerated into manufacturing. So maybe not a new idea, but it's certainly been sort of reprioritized, I'd say, closer to the top.
Thanks, Danielle. Anthony, you're going to say something then?
Yeah, it just echoes really, but I think just from our perspective, as an organisation that provides sort of innovation support on new technologies, particularly to SMEs, I think a lot of people thought that the demand would have gone down, but it's gone up. And I think as everyone on the panel's just said, I think it accelerated things. But what we found very much was that industry SMEs particularly, they went through almost 3 phases, and the first phase was a little bit survival, can I survive? Then it's recovery and safe working a little bit, but then actually it's opportunity and new markets, and that's the phase that the acceleration that digital technologies allowed people to be more agile. And I think it's all of that stuff that was talked about with the almost case studies earlier around track and traceability and agility and data for more informed decisions. That's all that people were doing. They were visualizing, analyzing and informing. So I think what we saw particularly was greater demand and then greater opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. When we think about Industry 4.0 and automation, I think there's a perception still that it's all about robots, and you're going to have robots taking over the factory, and people won't have jobs. But that's actually not the case, is it? It is about how we can make factories better, more efficient, and help the staff there do a better job, in fact. And is that something that you guys are seeing?
Something I see definitely. What we've put in has just helped them so much in terms of nobody really knew unless you told them, and you'd have to remember to tell them that if they didn't have that done by this time, they might have 2 tasks to do in a day, but the second task they're doing, someone else might not need for a week, someone else might need later on that same day. And being able to link all those tasks in real-time view just on a system that we've got it just empowers them to make small decisions that effectively as a manager you don't have to make. So you sit there and you have to make, I don't know how I would never want to count, but tiny little choices you have to make all day, every day, that really now I'm making half of them, so it does make them more efficient, and it makes me more efficient. And as you say, it's now become an opportunity. The challenges we faced are now gradually turning into a positive thing, and the same goes for material cost increases. Longer term, that'll be a good thing. At the moment it's a problem, but longer term it's a benefit for manufacturers, because as long as you maintain the same percentage on your material, you're going to make more money next year than you have this year. So.
Yeah, and Jake, you've sort of seen something similar. I mean, you guys have expanded hugely over the last 12 months.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you're right about the robots thing. Yeah, that's what everyone thinks. I was the same when everyone talked about digital technology, because I think when I started in the flavour industry, it was pen and paper, and all the audits were done going through folders of paper and presenting that to the auditor and stuff. And when people talk about digital technology, yeah, I'd think of myself as like an evil CEO, and all the robots running around doing everything for me, don't need to pay any wages. And then it wasn't until I looked into it further you understand the importance of systems and how efficient they are, really. Yeah, so I completely agree. That's what I originally thought, was thinking of all sorts of robots running around the factory. But no, definitely empowers the staff, and you can even use it down to things like cleaning. So in our factory, because obviously we're a food site, We used to have cleaning sheets, so the guys would have to tick off before every job, you know, my desk's clean, everywhere else around me's clean. Whereas now we can implement that into the system, so it's literally every batch they do, they just click it, and then instead of having to file away, if we do 100 batches a day, 100 pieces of paper a day, it's all logged on the system instead, and the guys must prefer it because it's quicker for them. So yeah, it's helped us massively.
Yeah.
Sorry, in the last 12 months, we just had some robotics installed, and on the shop floor, initially people are quite skeptical of what these robots are going to do and what part of their livelihood it might take away from them or not. But I mean, there's a lot of factors with robots. The first thing is they're not fully autonomous. They're not smart. They crash into walls if you allow them to. You've got to be super careful with them. So they can do select kind of jobs really well, but they can't by any means do what a human is doing. And the guys have kind of changed from this position of skepticism to a position of, oh, that's actually taken away from me the repetitive job I didn't enjoy doing anyway. And they're now looking around the rest of the factory and saying, okay, where else could I use a robot to take away this frustrating job that I don't want to do anyway? And so they're viewing it as a way of upskilling themselves, because we've obviously had to train people on how to run this robot and run the whole system, and a way to take away the elements of the job that are least enjoyable and most repetitive. And actually, robots can do highly repetitive, precise jobs better than humans, and they can do them all day long without a break. And so it helps the productivity of the factory. It helps everyone's KPIs, and it's not taking, anything from the team. If anything, it's improved their work situation. So that's been a real benefit.
Often, and it removes mistakes as well, doesn't it, in the process?
Oh yeah, often it depending obviously on the type of robot you get. They can be blind. They don't necessarily have visual systems, and so they can keep repetitively doing the wrong thing over and over again, not knowing that things are running correctly. And of course, there's now technology coming out which enables some feedback mechanisms, but depending on the complexity of the task, that they can be available or not in the industry. And over the next 10 years, that will change, I'm sure.
Yeah. Anthony, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to add a little bit just from the university perspective. So it's kind of double-edged, this, and it just follows on from exactly what Luke was saying there. Is we've spent probably the last 7, 8, 9 years trying to convince industry that robots aren't going to take people's jobs, but actually what it's to do with really is upskilling. And one of the things that we're finding is, as a university, we've got a responsibility now to try and train the workforce of the future. So to give that sort of next generation of skills. So, rather than perhaps someone who might be typically a production maintenance operator, in 10 years' time, they're most likely going to be a data analyst specialist. So we have to sort of train and validate our courses now to make sure that we're creating the people who can meet the demand for data and for IoT. And I think perhaps the analogy that we tend to use around how automation or how Industry 4 doesn't take a job is a farm, and the farm example being, what if you had an autonomous tractor? What if you had agrobots? What if you had drones mapping weeds? Well, each part of this technology with sensors on the livestock informing, the tolerances of the milk, or when a cow or a sheep is ill. All of this technology doesn't replace the farmer. It just allows he or she to make more informed decisions, and at the end of the day, save money, as it would be on sort of operational costs. So I think that there's a famous quote that I always sort of try and get when people talk about robotics, and it's, don't ask why a robot's doing a job a human can do, but why is a human doing a job a robot could do? And I think that's the upskilling part.
Yeah, and when it comes to upskilling and skill that's been, it's a topic that's been talked about quite a bit across the UK. Do we have the workforce of the future? Are we struggling to get the workforce of the future? I mean, where are we? I mean, Daniel, we had a chat about this the other day in terms of recruitment, and it's a candidates market at the moment, isn't it? Because the people just don't seem to be out there, or they're in demand if they are.
Yeah, I mean it's a major challenge, I would say, and I think manufacturing hasn't always had the reputation in terms of getting people out of the universities and looking like a desirable sort of career to go into. We have always sort of competed with more sort of glamorous, maybe IT type sort of jobs for whatever reason that have maybe had a better image. But I mean, the reality of the people we take out of universities or through our apprenticeship programs is the type of work that they're doing is, you know, these are software engineers, these are data analysts, these are people working with really sort of cutting edge technology that I would argue doesn't exist in a lot of other industries. So we've certainly had an image issue. There are different skill sets that we look for these days. We are more and more looking for experts, you know, high-level software programmers, experts in cybersecurity, data, you know, networking, these sort of things, because this is more of the skill sets that we're looking for within the factories. We have a reasonably sort of healthy workforce, certainly within Siemens, around the sort of electrical, mechanical side of things. But we can see certainly a disparity in some of these newer requirements that are being demanded from manufacturing customers.
Anthony, are you seeing that coming through the university? Are you seeing you know, people who want to look at those jobs as a career, or is it still in a big? I still have got a lot of work to do in terms of raising awareness of the kind of jobs of the future and the kind of skills that are needed?
I think I can 100% agree with Dan there. I think there's still an image issue, but absolutely, I think the key is around opportunity for people and opening that up. And as a university, what we tend to do is to try and embed all of the sort of skill sets, the softer skill sets that would be needed. So the independent thinking, the problem solving, the data analyst part, because companies will want to mold people as well. So we're trying to just create this series of independent thinkers and problem solvers with skill sets that will sort of allow them to grow in industry. But there is still a bit of an issue, and that's something that we're trying desperately to change. And we tend to use a lot of demonstration to try and change that.
And Luke, Grant, Jake, and Mike, are you guys having challenges around recruitment, or is it a case of like upskilling the people that you've got in your organizations at the moment?
I think from my side, it's a mix. What we're finding is you either have people who are technically capable working in the industry itself, or people who are data specialists. So we're trying to sort of bring those together and getting them to work together as well to try and improve their skill sets. At the same time, we do look for people who have both, but they are few and far between. And therefore, to be able to get people with that, the mix and with the technical capabilities, there is some form of training that's needed from our side to get them up to the technical levels. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Great. So we spoke about earlier, and I think Mike and Jake referred to it in terms of the support available to help manufacturers digitize. And I know, Jake, you sort of talked about, you know, working with the growth, and Mike, you said that, you know, you'd like to see, you know, more automation. What kind of support is available out there, and, you know, how do manufacturers, especially the SMEs in the Northwest, access that support, especially thinking about it? I mean, Anthony, you guys have got your own program running at the moment, and, you know, just tell us a bit more about that, and also, you know, what point, you know, can SMEs come to you guys and say, actually, we want to do this, because that gains the perception that, you know, innovation is for the big boys. And that's not the case. It's for everybody across all sectors, across in all sizes.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Shalene. I mean, it's a really interesting question, and I think I don't want to repeat what's already been said, but early on, I think there was a discussion around, particularly for SMEs, is I want to digitize, I want all of these benefits, but there's got to be a return on investment, and where do I start on this digital journey? Which is why I tend to call it an evolution, because you can start small. You can start by sort of a bespoke solution that sort of will give almost an immediate benefit. So we defined a number of projects over the years which were aimed at the SME market to try and help them on their digital journey. And we've seen real impact from that. And it's all based around our LCR4 brand, which was the first project that we delivered in Liverpool City region to help SMEs adopt Industry 4, or let's not bother what we call it. Let's demystify it and de-risk innovation, and let's help people improve productivity or competitiveness. So we built on this, and we've got 3 dedicated projects that are making a difference. Allows us to work in Cheshire, Warrington as well. So what do? We found that, you know, a lot of times SMEs would say, can I have this Industry 4? Well, it doesn't work like that. But can we now show them and demonstrate things like Internet of Things? Can we support business to business solutions? It was mentioned before on the panel about off-the-shelf software. We don't try and reinvent something that exists. We'll put businesses together. You know, we house some of Luke's equipment that we can demonstrate, for example, sort of IoT and hardware solutions, as it would be, that will inspire the uptake of digital tech. So we try and give access to our facilities. We try to demonstrate the benefits of tangible digital technology. We offer support for funding and research and development. We give access to our academic experts, and we try and create sustainable collaboration. So I think the message I would give to industry normally is, come and speak to us and see if we can help. If we can help, we will. And if we can't help, we normally know someone who can.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and then the cost of doing it doesn't always have to be massive. Again, the perception, it's going to cost a company thousands of pounds, and they can't always afford it. And, you know, I think, Daniel, when I spoke to you recently, you're saying sometimes, you know, it can start £100 for some of your products.
Yeah. I mean, like any big thing, you've got to kind of break it into sort of small, achievable chunks, as you know, in terms of developing this maturity along this journey. It's easy to justify an investment if there's a direct benefit and a direct value from it. I mean, as an organization, Siemens have got big customers that adopt huge amounts of automation, but the biggest part of our customer base is small to medium-sized enterprises. And in the UK, we work with small companies more than big companies. This is the reality of it. And they are probably a little bit further behind, but there is more opportunity. There's more to be gained with less investment and in a quicker time frame. So we tend to have a lot of these discussions around more kind of traditional kind of technologies, but we want to start them on a path. So we might have a 5-year vision where, you know, they're talking about, you know, lights out factories and robots everywhere and all that sort of stuff, and we'll go, okay, that's great. Now let's track that back, and what we're going to do in the next 6 months and the next 12 months. And do you have the support, and do you have the local partners, and do you have the expertise and people to help you? Because when you break it into these small chunks, it is that evolution that Anthony was talking about, and a progression of what any good engineering company is doing. But there's just new opportunities and new types of technologies to exploit.
And the Northwest, you know, is known for its manufacturing sector, and I think it has the biggest manufacturing sector of all regions in the UK. Do you guys see, you know, more people are more adopting technology? Do we see that trend of, you know, automation happening already, or do you feel like we've still got a long way to go?
I mean, I think we're kind of spoiled in the Northwest, to be honest, because we've got a lot of really good bodies, government bodies and university bodies available to give us help and support and advice. And I mean, Anthony's obviously mentioned the LCR initiative, which is fantastic. There's also the Made Smarter initiative, which is also very, very good. And one of the challenges for an MD is to try and figure out which of these opportunities is snake oil and which one is a legitimate opportunity for your business to move forward. And we are spoiled, like I said, and you can start really small, just like Dan said. And you don't, especially as an SME, there's so much opportunity, there's so much low-hanging fruit that, you know, often the first step is just to measure what's going on, because trying to justify a business return on investment if you're not measuring anything is almost impossible. And so, you know, the kind of products that we make allow you to measure things like energy consumption. And energy consumption is a hot topic at the moment. We're measuring energy consumption on our production line. And one of the key things it shows you is, this oven is consuming this much energy per month, and therefore is costing us this much. And if we were to buy a more modern, energy efficient oven, it would pay for itself in a certain amount of time. And suddenly, you know, it's no longer a kind of anecdotal discussion. It's a data-driven discussion, and then you can really start making data-driven steps towards your goals rather than anecdotal steps. And I think that changes the conversation in a really big way as soon as you're capturing data. I've seen conversations in the boardroom where managers will say, oh, when I walked past that machine, nothing was happening. And another one said, oh, when I walked past it was super busy. And actually, they're both right and they're both wrong, because you're not measuring what's really happening. You're just taking a snapshot over the course of a week. And these management discussions don't need to happen in that way. If you're measuring the state of your equipment, then you can clearly see the reality on the ground, and you don't have to say, those 2 minutes I spent there, this was happening, and therefore that's a summary of what's always happening there. And it's a real game changer, measuring things.
Yeah, and it goes back to making those informed decisions about what to do next, doesn't it? Yeah. And Ron, you're seeing something very similar in your own organisation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're working with quite a few companies, and you know, even in some cases, as an example, one of our customers makes fermented products, and you know, they're going down to the very detail of to ensure that they get the right type of product at the end. They're actually now monitoring wirelessly all of the different parameters that work towards, you know, giving them the right standards, if you like. But as Luke said, then, you know, all of our customers are continuously looking for the right amount of data to enable them to make informed decisions, whether it's an engineering manager, production manager, or whoever. They all need the right level of information to make that kind of decision. Yeah.
Thanks, Ron. Jake, can I just go back to, you know, because everybody said, you know, you guys are expanding, you're growing, and you want to adopt more innovation into the company. What are your challenges in taking those next steps?
Because we're in quite a niche market, it's just a case of finding something or creating something bespoke for manufacturing, really. So that's where we've been stuck. It's not, obviously, I can't imagine any industry can just pick something off the shelf, but this is extremely niche. So it's finding something that will work for us. So that's been our biggest challenge so far. And then it will be also taking all the digital technology we have here and then, you know, transferring that over to the States, because obviously they have different laws and regulations and all that type of stuff for accounting and everything else. So it's a case of moving all that over and tweaking it, really. And then obviously staying in touch with the US. But as we've started to use Teams and Zoom and things like this, that should make things a little bit easier. But yeah, that's it really. At the minute, it's just the idea to automate and improve efficiency, really.
Yeah, you got to speak to Anthony to introduce you to somebody he might know.
What was that? Sorry.
So you have to speak to Anthony to introduce you to somebody that he might know and help you.
Oh, yeah, definitely, please.
And Mike, what will be your next steps now? You started the process, and you know you want to do more. What's the next step for you guys?
Well, I think the next thing for us is what Luke was talking about is measurement. Really, is the simple steps that we've put in over the last few years. Now we've got a system that coordinates them all in a way. Is now to measure over the next 6 months what impact that actually has on our profitability, because we find our biggest challenge is our profits always being squeezed. So in construction, there's so much more focus on things being done off-site. So ideally in a manufacturing environment like ours, but the training available as a rule in schools and colleges and all that is centered towards site operatives. So we find we've got less people to do a wider range of services for people, whereas before we wouldn't deliver anything. The companies we were working for had a van driver, they had a design department, they'd send us a detailed drawing, we'd make it, they'd collect it. It was so simple. Now we're having to do the design work, we're coordinating their logistics, in some cases their site operatives, all of that sort of stuff. is all coming down on offsite people like us. So really for us, it's finding out how much more profit we can make by increasing sort of automation and a better system. And then we can decide whether we actually want to grow. We've got options to, well, in our industry, there's always growth options because there's always something being built. So growth is not usually a challenge, but in our industry, you very quickly fall down if you grow without being able to maintain your profit, you know. And the profit margins are historically pretty low. So we're just trying to find out if we can effectively get 5 to 10% more profit on our products. And if we can, well, then we'll grow the company significantly, probably.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's a conversation a lot of companies are having at the moment. It's, you know, it's opportunities, but still challenging times, isn't it? Yeah.
And you've got to be so careful because literally you can put your hand up and get plenty more work. It's not a problem, but you know, the idea that you can make money on it all is not that simple, you know. So especially because we do different things all the time. So we just really need to see where we get to with what we've done so far for 6 months, and then we decide that, you know, you could quite easily double the company in size in terms of the work that's available, but that could just as easily sink you as make you, you know. So for us, it's about seeing what the improvements we've made, what they do, you know, and how we measure that.
Right. Thanks, Anthony. And just going to Daniel, I mean, obviously you mentioned earlier, you know, mainly work, you know, but a lot with SMEs. What would you say to them in terms of, you know, how to start adopting, you know, innovation and Industry 4.0 into their firm? I mean, what's been the biggest challenge, do you think, for firms in getting to that stage?
I mean, what I would say is doing nothing is a conscious business decision and probably the single worst one you could make. So I think you need to be doing something. What that is depends on the maturity and ambition of the organization. I think certainly when you look at the Northwest, I think that in terms of the ecosystem there, all the pieces of the jigsaw are there. You know, we have the companies, we have the integration, we have academia, and there is sort of funding and things like that. But for whatever reason, the speed of adoption isn't where it should be. And when you look at the sort of global regions that maybe we compete against, it is faster in terms of the adoption. There is more of a focus on you know, the innovation piece and what's coming next. Maybe we have a bit more of a focus in terms of, you know, meeting the demand that's in front of us, and less of the long-term view that we see in some of the other regions in sort of Germany and China and these sort of regions. So yeah, my advice would always be engage with the resources that are available and make doing something your number one strategy.
Yeah, and as Luke said, there's plenty of opportunity in the Northwest. We're just coming towards the end of our discussion, and while we have spoken quite a bit about the challenges, and we just go around the panel really quickly and just ask, you know, what you're looking forward to the most, or what do you see is going to happen in the next 12 months as we go out 2021 into 2022. And I'll start with you, Luke, as you're on my left-hand side, and I'll go around.
I'm looking forward to going out and meeting people, to be honest. I think that'd be nice. There's various shows about that are coming up in the next few months. There's one in Liverpool, the Digital Manufacturing Week. I'm really hopeful that'll be a huge success. It's always a brilliant show. And just mixing with people that you don't see day to day, I think leads to further innovation. Yeah, I think that'll be fantastic. And I think that, you know, our most immediate challenges are to do with prices and to do with labor. And if we can look at ways of kind of monitoring energy usage is a huge topic at the moment, depending on your business, and dealing with upskilling our workforce, then I think those two challenges will present big opportunities for companies that embrace them.
Thanks, Luke. And I'll go to you, Ron. Oh, okay. Jake.
Hopefully a lot more HGV drivers. We can actually get our stock. But other than that, yeah, hopefully the supply chain sorts itself and prices become more reasonable. We've been in the food industry, so we've been half all right through COVID. Obviously, we lost the food service inside and everything, so we're hoping food service and the alcoholic drinks and all that type of stuff for the pubs creeps back in, because it's still a little on the low side. But yeah, other than that, we're just kind of hoping to go back to some normality, hopefully go out and see people, as Luke said, because obviously our job is taste, so it's a bit hard to do a tasting session with someone when they're on the other side of a computer screen. So yeah, just hoping for normality, really. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. And Mike?
Yeah, probably similar to Jake, really. I'm looking forward to prices leveling out. So, you know, we cost a job and then a month later, everything costs more money. So, yeah, a bit of sort of what we used to have, really. I'm actually bizarrely looking forward to some sales reps coming to see me, which I never ever thought I'd say. And yeah, just things getting back to the way they were a little bit. Yeah, so.
That's Mike. And Daniel?
Yeah, very similar. You know, getting in a room with people and really sort of accelerating conversations. We know the speed which things moved before we, you know, move to Teams and Zoom and things like that. So really getting in front of people. I think for us, one of the single major challenges will be around supply chain and demand. We can see a lot of customers trying to build more sort of resilience into their building business to try and deal with this. But I think it will be the number one challenge over the next 12 months.
Thanks, Daniel. And Anthony?
Well, yeah, there's nothing controversial from me that's going to disagree with what anyone said. So similar vein, really. But it's, I think for me, the thing I'm looking forward to is embracing the kind of lessons we've learned over this period, and that kind of hybrid working that we've been forced into. So that mixes the efficiency of perhaps being remote with the sort of pleasure and connectivity that catching up with people does. What we're looking forward to very much is really engaging with industry and trying to make a difference and create opportunities. And interesting that supply chains come up, because one of our projects and our programs is defined around trying to digitize more flexible and dynamic supply chains, and that's never been as important as it is at the moment. So I'm looking forward to not knowing what's happening over the next 6 to 12 months, but embracing it.
Thank you, Anthony. Well, that brings us to the end of our discussion, and I think it's been very interesting, and definitely lots of opportunities still available. And the Northwest, as Luke said, it's a great place to be a manufacturer, and definitely support out there, and a lot of collaboration that's already taking place. So thank you again to our wonderful panelists this morning for your time and for your insight. There will be a piece being written up about this, which will appear on the Business Desk website in the next week or so. So please do watch out for it. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.